The Novara Media journalist and presenter Aaron Bastani was attacked earlier on today on his way to the Novara Media studio to be able to do their live show Novara Live. This is not the first time we have seen left-leaning journalists attacked in this country for seemingly no reason. This happened to Owen Jones by, I think it was a Tommy Robinson supporter previously, and it's clear that there is a level of radicalization going on, which is going to lead to these kind of things happening more often. In fact, I'm surprised we've not seen this kind of thing more often, the kind of radicalization that we're getting, and I would say this is clearly on both sides of the aisle, but as far as actual attacks have come down to, we've mostly seen it only really coming from the far right recently. You know, the left talks again about political violence, but do they actually ever deal it out? You don't really see it very often. Either way, Aaron Bastani did a thread about this on Twitter. Let's have a little bit of a read, shall we? I can't believe what happened a few hours ago, but on my way to the train station to head into Novara Media, a man I've never seen before screamed my name while passing by and assaulted me. I was punched multiple times. Fortunately, I was able to pacify him, with subsequent assistance from a passerby until a police arrived. This is someone who knew my name. Fortunately, there were multiple independent witnesses and the man is now being questioned by the police. It was a completely unprovoked attack near my home in broad daylight. My suspicion it was a politically motivated physical attack on a journalist. The background to this is I've been targeted by the far right before. It is a very real risk that I live with. Finally, my thanks to the police officers who arrived promptly and behaved with the utmost professionalism and courtesy. Now, this is clear. I agree with Aaron when he says this. I really do agree that it does look like a politically motivated attack for the positions that he holds. Right? If someone's out there screaming his name, what else is Aaron Bastani known for, other than the fact that he is a journalist for Novara Media? What else is he known for? I don't think very much, really and truly. Like, someone was in the quote tweets of this saying, well, we can't really say that it's going to be a political attack. It's a lot of speculation when he's not somebody of very large standing. I'm like, well, the fact that he's not of large standing is kind of a niche political commentator actually means it's far more likely to be politically motivated. Again, I will reiterate, we don't have any hard evidence either way about whether this was politically motivated or not, but I think it's a reasonable assumption to make until we get evidence to the contrary based upon who he is, the things he advocates for, and the kind of politically themed violence that we have seen in the recent years focused on the political left. Okay, so I think this is whilst only speculation, is a reasonable assumption to be able to make. Now, on the start of Novara Media's live show today, Aaron Bastani did a little statement about the things that happened earlier on, and so we're going to watch this and see what he had to say live on Novara Media today.
I just want to touch quickly on something that happened today. On my way into the studio earlier, while walking to my local train station, I was assaulted by a man who I'd never met before, but who knew my name. He punched me from behind after passing by and used rather unsavory language about me. Fortunately, I was able to pacify him and was helped by a passing member of the public after a few minutes. The police were called and an arrest was made. Multiple independent witnesses saw what happened. Now, in a way, I should count myself lucky that this took place in broad daylight and that there are witnesses who can corroborate what happened. But this was a completely unprovoked attack near my home, and my suspicion is this was a politically motivated assault on a journalist. This cannot be allowed to become normal. But in any case, I'm here to present tonight's show because I and my colleagues here at Novara Media refuse to be intimidated by bullies and thugs merely for having political opinions.
And this really does mirror a lot of the kind of rhetoric that we see overseas in the United States, for example, the political polarization and radicalization leading to further violence. In fact, in the replies to Aaron Bastani's tweet that he made about this, Turning Point UK were here saying, well, you're one of the reasonable journalists, so we're really sad that this happened to you, which first of all implies that they would have not been unhappy had it happened to somebody they really, really didn't agree with. For example, another left, where they only had principles for people that they were happy to slightly agree with them. But also, you know, this is Turning Point UK, who only, I think it was last month or the month before, there was this kind of anti-drag Queen Story Hour protest that they did, which involved members of Turning Point UK beating up a trans woman and making her literal blood rolling down her face kind of beating up, when there is clearly a lot of politically motivated radicalization from the far right happening right now. Trans people are at the heart of this. I thought Curtis Daly did a really good segment on Turn Left earlier today, comparing this to the groomer narrative that's going on, right? The political polarization that others the people that they disagree with into being, you know, less than human, for example. I mean, what do you think Untermensch was supposed to be referring to during the fascist period in Germany, where you have to dehumanize people to ensure that you can make the politically motivated violence against them be legitimized in your own mind, right? They're all groomers. They're all paedophiles. I mean, Graham Linehan is literally out here calling, people who are pro-trans literal paedophiles. Helen Joyce is calling people who are pro-trans people who want to make a child sacrifice. The kind of stochastic terrorism that can be used to be weaponized to give kind of pre-justified action legitimacy. That's really dangerous rhetoric, right? Because in general, when you look at common parlance, the way pedophiles and groomers are the people who are usually, as society is concerned, to be legitimate targets of violence. Really and truly, like, people see pedophiles as legitimate targets of violence, and people want to get these people executed. And obviously, I'm saying, clearly these people should be actual, real pedophiles, should be dealt with to the strongest extent of the law possible, right? But what that is politically useful for them to do is to compare anybody that they don't like to a paedophile, and then they use that as justification for political violence against them. People who are pro-trans, for example, people who they believe are part of this World Economic Forum conspiracy theory, for example, could be people that could be then perceived as legitimate for political violence. And fear is a great way of stoking this. A great way in which the far right have been enabling people in this country is through fear politics, right? Fear of demographic replacement, fear of, people coming for your children. These are all the same things that have come from the American far right as well, that have been taken into British politics. The fear that your life, that your home and everything you own is going to get taken away from you by the globalist elites or whatever it might be. And the Conservatives are happy to weaponize this fear too. You've got to remember, the Conservative Party are the ones deliberately putting refugees and asylum seekers in areas where they know they're going to get political unrest that they can then use to try and curry favor with these same communities. And this is going to create violent rhetoric. People like, Mark Collette from Patriotic Alternative. These people turn up at Let Women Speak marches to try and spread far-right rhetoric, which will lead to the kind of violence that we saw when there was I think it was in the Merseyside area, where there was riots and vans set on fire because of people protesting against migrants being held in hotels in that area. It's super, super dangerous, and this rhetoric that's coming through is going to lead to more attacks like this in future. And all this part of the same kind of conspiracy theory as well. And I don't need to tell everybody in chat that a lot of this is very kind of JQ-centric. All of the Great Replacement stuff, all of the, and all the climate hoax type stuff, all of the groomer panic stuff, every single time this comes back to the JQ. And Mark Collette and people like Patriotic Alternative are the ones who continue trying to push this even further. They try to push it further to manufacture the concern that they need to get people on their side for this kind of stochastic terrorism. There was a really great interview on Downstream, ironically made by Novara Media, with somebody who did infiltration into these far-right sects, who people like Tommy Robinson, and they were talking about how mainstream these conspiracy theories and this kind of rhetoric is becoming. And we will end up with more situations like Joe Cox and David Amos. I know you'll say, oh, well, no justice. David Amos was attacked by an Islamophobic, by a Islamic jihadist, whatever it might be. And I'm like, still right-wing, like still far-right ultra-conservatism, just, being done under a different banner. Like, let's not kid ourselves into thinking that Salafist jihadists are anything other than a right-wing movement, a right-wing kind of ultra-ethno-nationalist movement, for example. But that's still part of dangerous rhetoric, just from a different source. Ironically, mirroring kind of the rhetoric that you get from the far-right types and the ultra-nationalist types in the UK as well, from British people as well, too. And if we're not careful, we're going to see more of this stuff moving forward. It's not just Aaron Bastani, it's not Owen Jones, it's not the drag queen story hour, and it's not just Joe Cox as well in the worst case scenario. And the kind of rhetoric that's being done, the pro-fear rhetoric that's being used to try and stoke this violence is incredibly dangerous, and we need to be wary of it. And we need to kind of cool down this rhetoric that's happening online. Otherwise, this kind of thing that we've seen to Aaron Bastani and Owen Jones is going to happen far, far, far more frequently. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does help out the channel and the algorithm. And if you click the bell notification icon, it will let you know when I go live and when I upload videos. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my handle is @NoJusticeMTG, and that is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. If you want to support my channel in a more financial manner, you can do so by becoming a member for just 99p, by super chatting, or by supporting me on Patreon, with the link is in the description of this video, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next segment.